Hello, everybody, and welcome. Here we share true stories from real people. So today, starting out, we have the first story. It reads, Updated. My wife tried to divorce me for my money with my daughter's support. She got almost nothing from me. Original post. I, 46 male, have been married to my wife, Leanne, 40 female, for 20 years. We have a daughter together, Mary, 19 female, who recently started college. I've always prided myself in working hard to provide a comfortable life for my family. We've never had to worry about missing bills, running short on cash, or where our next meal would come from. All in all, I earn pretty well and have what some would consider a small fortune saved away in various investments. There's enough there that we could all afford to live a very lavish lifestyle if we desired, but I've always believed in being financially responsible. That's how I've gained so much wealth in the first place. I'm not trying to brag, my point is just that. Even though we've never had any financial troubles, that's not to say that I'm tight-fisted. I'm just reasonable with money. But I understand the importance of spending a bit extra to treat ourselves sometimes. My wife was a stay-at-home mom throughout my childhood, and my daughter got to go to her dream school and never had to worry about student loans. They both drove their dream cars within reason. I wasn't going to buy a Lamborghini for anyone, but my wife enjoyed her Range Rover and my daughter was happy with her BMW 3 Series. Personally, I'm a sucker for vacations, and we always took a nice family trip once a year. Back when we got married, I was already doing well for myself. I had a good job and few responsibilities, so I funneled most of my disposable income into my various investments. This wasn't something I really shared with girls back when I was dating, so they usually thought they were going out with a high-earning man with money to spend on them. This led to more than a few horror stories where materialistic women would leave me after they found out I wasn't the type to spend lavishly, especially on girlfriends. My wife was different from other girls, though, or so I thought. She'd never given me the impression that she was after my money. At a time when I had close to 7 figures in savings and investments, I took her on a first date to a small diner. Not a test, I just loved their coffee and still do, and she didn't complain. She even offered to split the bill, which I declined. That was when I thought that I'd found the rare woman who looks for more than money in a relationship, and I immediately made moves to continue dating her. Fast forward a bit, and we're married with a child. Things have been going well for the most part of our marriage, or at least I thought so. We lived a comfortable life and had a beautiful, clever daughter. I think the first domino that started the collapse of my marriage was when Leanne got the idea of just how wealthy I actually was. I'm still not aware of how she found out, but her taste changed shortly after that. Suddenly, she was asking for more extravagant things. She wanted designer clothes and expensive jewelry. Our simple family trips were no longer enough for her. Now she wanted to fly first class to 5-star resorts. At first, I tried to humor her where I could, but soon realized that she didn't have limits to how much that she had prepared to spend the money that I'd spent more than half of my life building. I sat Leanne down one evening hoping to have an honest conversation about her new expensive habits. I explained that while we had more than enough money, we needed to be responsible. I pointed out that it was financial responsibility that enabled me to accumulate the money in the first place. I told her that I didn't want to drain our savings on frivolous things that we could be securing a better future for ourselves and our marriage. I knew that she wouldn't be happy about that, but I didn't expect her reaction. Leanne blew up at me. She started calling me cheap and controlling, accusing me of being tight with my money as a form of financial abuse. She went on to complain that I had more money than anyone else she knew, but we were living like poor people. I pointed out the nice cars that she and my daughter drove, as well as the yearly trips, but she just scoffed, saying it was nothing compared to how we were supposed to be living. And I'm not the only one that feels like this. Mary agrees with me. Hearing Mary's name mentioned caught me off guard. I had assumed this obsession with spending money was only an issue with Leanne, but apparently she had been feeding my daughter the same poison. Mary hadn't been talking to me as much recently, and I always thought it was just because that she had moved out to college. Now I started to believe that she might be unhappy with me because I didn't spend money the way that they both prefer. In my mind, Mary was still my little girl. and I'd worked hard to make sure that she understood the value of dollar earned. Sure, I'd paid her tuition and bought her a fancy car, but that was just to make her happy. Ever since she was old enough, I'd made sure that she worked part-time in summer jobs. I taught her how to invest, what she made, and how to spend it wisely. I could have easily just given her that money, but I was trying to prepare her for her future. It felt horrible to find out that my teachings might not have sunk in at all. After that conversation, things started to deteriorate between Leanne and me. There was tension in my relationship with my daughter as well. She called me less often, and when she did, it was usually to request money for trips or shopping with her friends. When I tried to explain what I told her mom about managing finances, she said, "Yeah, Mom told me that was your excuse." The word excuse stung pretty bad. I didn't want to have a repeat of the argument that I had with her mother. But it's a dad's job to put his daughter on the right path, isn't it? I tried to tell her that it wasn't an excuse. That was how I built up the wealth that they wanted me to spend recklessly. She wasn't having it. She went on to rant about how she had friends whose families weren't nearly as rich as we were, but they were living better than we were. We should be living like celebrities, like the Kardashians. I couldn't believe I was hearing this from Mary. I thought I'd raised her with enough self-worth to avoid caving to peer pressure, but I'd never expected the pressure to come from her own mother. In the end, though, I was the one in charge of her finances, so we wouldn't spend any more or less than I decided. But there was a huge shift in the energy in our family. My wife and daughter both seemed to resent me for not giving in to their financial demands, though they didn't seem to have a problem spending the money I did choose to give them. Funny how that works. I think I was in denial for a while after this. I was trying to salvage what I could of my relationship, even though my wife and I were starting to disagree fundamentally on budgeting and finances. But I convinced myself that we would be fine since she didn't have access to the bulk of my funds. I got a reality check in the form of a mobile notification on her phone. One day, we were sitting together when a unique notification sound went off on her phone. I tried to glance at her screen, but she had it angled away from me so that I couldn't see it. That felt suspicious, so I asked her what the notification was. She said it was a settings notification and refused to explain it further. That incident bounced around in my head for a while, so I decided to go through her phone and find out what she was hiding. It took a few days, but I eventually got my hands on it. I looked through her apps and found out that she had created a profile on a dating app. It wasn't some app like Tinder, though. It was one of those exclusive dating apps that catered to rich men. At that moment, I realized that she was done with our relationship, and I had had mixed feelings. I felt sad and betrayed, but also kind of relieved, like my failing relationship had been put out of its misery. I was scared to go through her messages on the app. I already realized we were over, but that didn't mean that I wanted to see proof of her throwing herself at other men. I don't believe ignorance is bliss, though, so I went through the app. I noticed her bio told some half-truths. It said that she was used to living a high-class lifestyle but was looking for a big spender who could keep up with her. She helpfully left out the fact that she was married with a daughter. I couldn't find any proof that she had slept with any of these men, but she had texted with a few of them. That didn't matter. Just the very fact that she was on the dating app was proof of her betrayal as far as I was concerned. She had cheated on me. The worst bit was that her bio said that she had just left a relationship with a wealthy man who didn't spoil her the way that she deserved to be spoiled. So she had checked out of the relationship already. Any hope I had that we might be able to fix things had just been dragged behind the shed. I had to confront her. I wasn't going to live a lie, so I needed to know where we stood. I went straight to her and asked why she was on a dating app. She started stammering and said that she was just curious and that she hadn't met anyone. I'm normally a patient person, but finding out that my wife wasn't who I thought she was had left me irritable. I shouted at her to stop lying to me, that I'd read her comments. Her voice started shaking, like she was about to start crying, and I cut her off to tell her to spare me the tears. Her voice kept shaking, and she said that she was just looking for a distraction because she wasn't living the lifestyle that she deserved from me. I was just talking to those guys, that's all. We got into a loud argument over it where she insisted that she hadn't cheated, and I told her I needed time to think. I went out for a drive to clear my head. I realized that I needed to talk to Mary to find out what her mom had told her. It seemed like that they were sharing everything now. Maybe she would tell me something that would back up what her mom had said, or maybe she would confirm that her mom was over me and that our relationship was doomed. I decided I would drive down to see her the very next day. I hated involving my daughter in an issue between my wife and myself, but I had to get to the bottom of this. I drove down to Mary's school and visited her in her dorm. She didn't seem too thrilled to see me. I asked her if she was aware that her mom was on a dating app for rich men. She didn't even attempt to deny it. Can you blame her? What's the point of being with a rich man who treats us like he's poor? I won't even lie, I felt like crying after hearing that. You'll never know the pain of hearing your little baby talk to you like that. Not only did she know what her mom was doing, but she supported it. So you're okay with your mom going behind my back, looking for men who could give her what exactly? Mary just rolled her eyes and said, her mom wanted a man who was willing to give her the lifestyle that I was supposed to. She said that I had the money, but I wasn't ready to give them that lifestyle, and they both deserved better than that. I was incredibly disappointed to find out. I had raised a daughter who believed that was justification for infidelity. Leanne had poisoned my daughter's mind, and it infuriated me. I was tired of having the same conversation over and over. I tried one last time to point out that I had provided my family's needs as well as a few luxuries where it was sensible. It's not enough. You have millions, and we live like we're middle class. She went on to explain how embarrassing it was for her and that her friends had been able to afford more lavish things while she had to beg me for pennies. It's not like she's leaving you right now, she's just keeping her options open. If she thought that was supposed to help, it didn't. There wasn't much for us to say after that. She kept trying to explain that I just stood up and left. I drove back home feeling utterly heartbroken. That night, my wife and daughter both felt like complete strangers to me. What Mary said rang over and over in my head. Her mom hadn't said it directly to me, but it sounded like the two of them had been discussing her divorcing me to get half of what I owned. They were so desperate for my money that Leanne was ready to throw away 20 years of marriage. I'm not going to be taken for a fool, though. If it's coming to divorce, then I'm going to get ahead of it. I had a friend who went through something similar a few years back, and he recommended the lawyer who helped protect him. I can't talk about what we're doing right now, but we'll be ready for them. Now for the update. I thought it was only fair for me to circle back and give a final update to everybody who invested in my story the first time. I know it's been a while since I first shared my story. Looking back at that date of the original post, it's been over 3 years. A lot has happened in that time. Like I said last time, divorce was the only option. Unfortunately for me, I had been pretty stupid back when I got married. Prenups weren't a big topic back then, so I never knew how to protect myself. Even if it had come to my mind, I probably wouldn't have gone through with it because I was convinced that my wife was different. She wasn't into material things like other women. What a joke. One thing I knew for sure was that I wasn't going to let this woman claim half of my assets in a divorce. I'd spent 20 years exercising financial discipline and restraint to build up a decent sum that was supposed to support me and my wife through retirement and provide a healthy inheritance for my daughter. Now my wife and daughter wanted to rip it from me so that they could spend it all living like the Kardashians or whatever vapid celebrities that they idolized. I would rather set it all on fire myself before letting that happen. They were aiming to get millions out of me. I'd make sure that they didn't see a single million altogether. I was going to protect as many of my assets as I could. My friend's lawyer specialized in helping wealthy men protect their assets and had helped him do something similar a while back. We immediately got to work. Fortunately, a significant portion of my wealth came from such smart investments I had made before I had gotten married, so those couldn't be touched. I still had a lot of assets that I had acquired over the course of my marriage, and that's where we focused our efforts. He pointed out that hiding assets from a divorce was illegal, but there were ways to move things around to make them harder to find. The only catch was that for this to work, we needed time. I didn't mind. They weren't the only ones who could play the long game. Over a period of nearly 2 years, my lawyer and I moved most of my assets around. I won't go into too much detail about what I did because it's legally a gray at best, and partly because it's not the kind of thing that I'm comfortable explaining. Just posting this update feels like a confession of guilt that could be used against me. What I will say is that it involved clever financial maneuvering that was mostly above board offshore accounts, stable crypto, and investments that wouldn't raise red flags. I'm simplifying a lot, but you should get the point. A ton of work went into it behind the scenes to ensure that this would stand up to scrutiny. I had to keep her strung along, though. I couldn't have her initiate divorce proceedings before I had successfully protected the bulk of my assets, so I pretended to be nice. I told her that I'd forgiven her, and I even started spending a little extra on her. But I knew it wouldn't be enough, so I also used her greed against her. Over dinner, I casually talked to her about an investment I was waiting on. I mentioned that I stood to gain a few $1,000,000 when it matured. I could see the dollar signs in her eyes. If she waited for that deal to close before divorcing me, half of that could be hers. Of course, the investment was entirely fictitious. She was so greedy that she never even bothered to find out what could be making me such an absurd amount of money at once. It worked for me because she started asking about the investment without trying to seem too interested. I gave vague answers to keep her on the hook, always giving her an answer that made it seem a few weeks or months down the road. She patiently waited for her massive windfall that didn't exist. And the whole time I was still moving assets offshore and into crypto wallets. Eventually, my lawyer and I felt that we had moved enough of my assets to significantly protect me. More importantly, I was satisfied with what was left afterwards. A quick review of my assets that weren't currently hidden made it look like that I just slightly was successful. If my soon-to-be ex took half of that, I would be fine. It wasn't the massive payout that she was hoping for, and I'd still have the majority of my wealth to myself. So I told her the investment unfortunately had failed. She didn't take it well, and it took almost a full 2 months for her to serve me with divorce papers. After that, all I said was, if this is what you want, fine. I couldn't summon the energy to pretend I was hurt. We'd both been done with this relationship for years now. She had just been along for the free ride, and I had been preparing myself for the divorce. The divorce itself was vicious. She hadn't saved much in preparation for the divorce, so she got some bozo lawyer. Meanwhile, my lawyer specialized in this type of case, and we had been preparing for years. When it was time to split up the assets and my current financial state came to light, the shock on my wife and daughter's faces made everything worth it. I simply shrugged when they looked at me. In the end, she walked away with a decent amount of money and some alimony, but it wasn't nothing too crazy. I'd have preferred to walk away without giving that gold digger a dime, but I could live with this. That was only a drop in the bucket compared to what she had wanted to take from me. My ex and daughter were both furious about this. One day, Leanne came over and demanded to talk to me. I noticed that she was dressed very well. I don't have an eye for designers, but she was wearing pants and a bag plastered with logos that I'm guessing were pretty expensive. I can see you both started living the big life, I said. Leanne didn't find that funny. She screamed at me about how I had stolen what she deserved. I asked what she meant by that, and she told me that half of everything I had built was hers. This woman really claimed that she had helped me build millions of dollars over the course of our marriage. Millions of dollars that she wanted to spend as soon as she found out I was doing better than the average person was. All the money that I had made had been in spite of her, not because of her. I simply told her that my financial records had been exposed during the divorce and she had gotten a fair cut of everything I owned. Later, I had heard from a friend that Leanne is struggling financially. She burned through the money pretty quickly and her alimony isn't enough to support the kind of lifestyle that she's been dreaming of. She'd never really learned how to manage finances well, and she started piling up debts that won't be able to be met. I heard from Mary that she started dating pretty quickly, and none of her relationships went the distance, and Mary and I have been talking again, but I'm the one that isn't so open anymore. I don't know whether she really wants to reconnect with her father or if she's just looking for money again, and that's making it hard to open up with her. She's my daughter and I love her no matter what, but I'm still hurt and not ready to forgive her just yet. Maybe someday I can undo the damage Leanne did to her and we can go back to normal. Until then, I'm not giving her a penny. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for teaching my daughter the importance of sleep? Just like any other kid, my 7-year-old daughter hates bedtime. If it's ever 9:59 and we tell her it's bedtime, then she will make a huge court case about how we are depriving her of 1 minute of her life. I always let it go, but this week when I told her it's bedtime at 10:05, she protested. Essentially, she didn't understand why she had to go to bed while the rest of us adults stayed up later. It's unfair that we get to enjoy the rest of our night when she has to go to bed early. I mean, she's not wrong. It definitely makes more sense for me to go to bed early as well, since all of us wake up roughly around the same time. But I needed her to understand the consequences of the trade-off between sleep and early mornings. So I told her, okay, she can stay up as long as she wants. Hell, if we go to bed, she can keep watching TV all night until the next morning. Her eyes glimmered and she did her little victory dance before sitting on the sofa and enjoying her little win. My wife protested, saying that she'll be too tired for school tomorrow, and I said, that's the point. I went to bed and woke up at 7 a.m. Sure enough, my daughter slept on the sofa probably about 2 hours before I woke up. Understandably, getting her to wake up and get ready for school was a battle that neither of us enjoyed. I dropped her off at school and picked her up again after school, and she was done with the day and slept in the car on the way home. Once we got home, she tried to go to bed, and I told her she can't because her swimming lesson is in an hour and she needs to get ready for that. She cried, but I still forced her to go with her mom. She came back just barely able to make it through the day and tried making her way up the stairs again. I told her she forgot about her homework and she started crying again. My wife said that we should let her sleep, but I was firm on my stance that if we let her off the hook right now, then she will never understand the consequences of her decision. Delaying responsibilities due to factors within your control isn't okay, and I don't want her learning that that is the case. I helped her with her homework, and by the time it was 8, she was already in bed. The next night, when it was 10, she didn't even protest. Just started walking up to her bedroom and declined when I asked her if she wanted to stay up with us. I thought the mission was a success, but my wife questioned my parenting technique and said it was borderline neglectful and manipulative. I disagree, but after a few conversations with friends and family, I'm slowly starting to doubt myself. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.